Imagine this. It's the holiest day of the year, Easter Sunday. Sunlight is just streaming through these magnificent stained glass windows, right? Painting the floor of this grand cathedral. And it's packed. 10,000 people all praying.
It's a picture of perfect peace, spiritual communion.
Until it isn't. In a flash, steel comes out, screams just shatter the quiet, and blood, bright red blood, is suddenly staining the marble floor.
It's the ultimate betrayal, really. A sanctuary, desecrated, that holy moment twisted into just unimaginable violence, the foundations of everything just gone in an instant.
And that chilling reality is what we're diving into today. This isn't some story. This happened. It's the opening scene of one of the most, audacious and frankly brutal conspiracies in Renaissance history, the Pazzi conspiracy.
A truly shocking event.
Yeah. We're digging into April 26, 1478 in Florence, a meticulously planned hit on the Medici brothers Lorenzo and Giuliano, right in the middle of Easter Mass.
Unthinkable, really.
Our mission today: unpack all the layers of intrigue, figure out who the key players were, what drove them, trace the clues maybe that led to this explosion of violence.
And see what it tells us about power, loyalty, survival. All in that glittering, but oh so dangerous world of Renaissance Italy.
Exactly. So get ready. We're going behind the velvet curtains, deep into the shadows of Florence's supposed golden age. Okay, so let's really set this scene, not just as a backdrop, but like a character in the story. Florence Cathedral, Duomo, April 26, 1478, Easter Sunday.
You can almost smell it, can't you? Like heavy scent of incense.
Right. Thick incense, the murmuring of this huge congregation, 10,000 people, packed in for the most important day in the church calendar, and the light. Brunelleschi's dome, the stained glass, just throwing colors everywhere.
It's this picture of piety, wealth, beauty, Florence showing its best face, you could say, but also incredibly vulnerable.
And right there, near the altar, the absolute center of attention are the two men who really were Florence at that time, Lorenzo and Giuliano de' Medici.
The unofficial princes of the city. Everyone knew them as the sun and moon Florence revolved around. Their presence alone was a statement. Power, prestige, everything.
The sun and moon. That's such a great description.
Yeah.
And maybe tragically fitting. Lorenzo, he's the older one, 29. He's the son. Intense, brilliant, the mind.
The diplomat, the fixer, always balancing things, navigating these incredibly complex alliances that kept Florence ticking, kept it safe.
You can imagine, even while he's praying, his mind is just racing.
Right.
Weighing deals, sensing threats. He's got the weight of the family, the whole city on his shoulders, young shoulders too.
While Giuliano, he's 24, 5 years younger, he's the moon, the golden boy. Everyone agrees on that. Handsome, athletic, charming. The people genuinely loved him.
He represented that Medici golden age in a way Lorenzo maybe couldn't. That youth, that grace, that sort of uncomplicated popularity. He just radiated this ease.
Exactly. But beneath all that peace, that beauty inside the cathedral's shadows, something else was stirring. A different kind of devotion.
A conspiracy fueled by what? Envy, ambition, just raw lust for power. And it was about to hit at the climax.
And the signal they chose, it just amplifies the horror, the elevation of the host during Mass, the most sacred moment. Absolute silence, everyone focused.
That was the signal. Chilling. To kill, right then.
The ultimate profanity. To use that precise holy instant and the efficiency, it's terrifying. Steel flashes. A group lunges out from the crowd. Not random, practiced, cold.
And two of them, Francesco de Pazzi and Bernardo Bandini de Baroncelli, they just fell on Giuliano. The first hit was a dagger, hard in the back.
Can you imagine the shock? The sheer disbelief in his eyes? He probably staggered, maybe tried to reach for a weapon.
But he didn't have one on him, did he? And there was no stopping it. It was a frenzy. They stabbed him again and again, 19 times. Just brutal, merciless.
Yeah.
Left him lifeless on the marble, blood pooling everywhere.
19 times, that number.
Yeah.
It speaks volumes about the hate behind it. It wasn't just murder, it was annihilation.
Horrific, almost ritualistic. And at the same time, just feet away, two others attacked Lorenzo. And these guys, they were priests.
Which is another layer of shock, isn't it? Men of God turned assassins.
One aims a dagger right at Lorenzo's throat. But his thick cloak deflects it, mostly. Still gets a gash on his neck, though. Very close call.
Incredibly close. And crucially, his friends reacted instantly. Not soldiers. These guys were poets, philosophers.
Humanists, yeah. But they formed a human shield around him. Their loyalty, not fighting skill, saved him right then.
Absolutely. And they hustled him, pushed him towards the sacristy, that little room off the side.
And those heavy bronze doors, the ones by Luca della Robbia with all the carvings, they slammed shut behind him, That sound must have echoed like a gunshot through the chaos. Lorenzo, trapped inside, safe for now, but hearing the mayhem erupt outside.
Inside, terror. Outside, pandemonium. And for a few moments, the city itself didn't know. The shift was so sudden, so violent.
Until the first bell started tolling. The cathedral's great bell. Frantic, desperate. Not the usual Easter peal.
And then every other church bell joined in, this cacophony, drowning out the hymns, signaling pure alarm, plunging the whole city into what would become just a maelstrom of violence and revenge. The heart of the city, suddenly a symbol of chaos.
Okay, let's freeze it right there. Blood, screams, terror. How? How did this happen in Florence? The city of art, banking, Republican ideals. How does a house of God become a killing floor?
What forces were really at play here? What were the clues leading up to this?
To figure that out, we need to understand Florence itself, its fundamental contradiction.
That's exactly it. Florence in 1478, it's this incredible paradox. On paper, it's a republic. Fiercely independent, proud of its democratic traditions, strong guilds running things.
But in reality, everyone knew who was really in charge, the Medici family. No official title, no crown, nothing hereditary. But their power, absolutely.
But that tension, that contradiction was always just simmering beneath the surface.
That's what always gets me. No formal power, but all the power. How? Well, it wasn't military might. It was money. A gigantic banking empire spreading across Europe. They literally held the purse strings of popes and kings.
That old saying, who controls credit controls politics. In Florence, that wasn't just a saying, it was the bedrock truth. It shaped everything.
Yeah, Florence was this incredible engine of commerce and creativity, wasn't it? Profit and beauty just going hand in hand. You had powerful guilds, wool, silk, banking, stonemasons. They all had a voice.
They did. But the Medici, through their sheer financial muscle and just incredibly smart political moves, they subtly controlled it all. They operated above the formal structures, pulling the strings.
And they weren't old nobility, were they? They were commoners originally. Rose up through business smarts, good investments, knowing who to back. Cosimo de' Medici, the grandfather, he basically invented soft power, didn't he?
He perfected it, a masterclass in using wealth for loyalty, not forcing people, but obligating them. Granting favors, funding huge public works churches, libraries, hospitals.
And the art. Commissioning all those paintings, sculptures, manuscripts, he basically turned Florence into the cradle of the Renaissance, didn't he? Made it the cultural capital of the world.
Absolutely. Dazzled everyone. And all the while, he was cementing Medici control, making them seem indispensable, generous patrons, while actually tightening their grip. Brilliant, really, almost invisible.
But behind the beautiful paintings and libraries, there was a pretty ruthless political machine humming away. Cosimo set up the Concilio del Cento, the Council of the Hundred. Looked democratic.
But stacked with Medici loyalists. They passed laws that helped the family, rigged elections, pushed rivals aside. It was designed to look Republican, but function like, well, a Medici fiefdom.
The sophisticated system, really.
Yeah.
Patronage and clientelism. City money used to reward your friends and punish your enemies. Kept everyone in line without needing a crown.
And that created deep resentment, naturally, especially among the older, established families who felt they were being pushed out, losing their traditional influence.
Which leads us right to the Pazzi, an ancient family, noble lineage, older and, in their own view, way more distinguished than these upstart Medici bankers.
And they were rival bankers, too, with their own extensive networks, very wealthy, very proud.
But deeply ambitious and just profoundly resentful of the Medici's dominance. They saw themselves as the rightful leaders, and they hated this informal rule. They were tired of losing deals, being sidelined, watching their own status just slowly chip away. They felt like second-class citizens in their own city.
So Florence, in 1478, it's balanced on a knife's edge. You've got old versus new, sacred versus profane, beauty versus brutality, all rubbing shoulders uneasily.
And that underlying tension meant that something seemingly small, like, say, a fight over who gets the Pope's bank account,
could easily escalate into a full-blown bloody vendetta, threatening to rip the whole city apart. The passions were high greed, ambition, revenge. They weren't just simmering. They were about to boil over.
Okay, any great story, any real historical drama, it hinges on the people involved, right? Their motivations, their fears, their ambitions, and the Pazzi conspiracy. It's a textbook example, a real clash of titans, people risking absolutely everything.
To understand that Easter Sunday, you have to understand the men who made it happen, what drove them to such an extreme act.
At the absolute center, you have Lorenzo de' Medici. He's only 29, which is amazing when you think about it. And he embodies that Renaissance spirit, doesn't he? All its contradictions.
Totally. Poet, philosopher, patron of the arts, could talk Plato 1 minute.
And negotiate a brutal trade deal the next. He was also a ruthless political operator, a master of intrigue, would do anything to protect his family, protect Florence. A fascinating mix, high culture, hard politics.
They called him the needle in the balance of power in Italy, skillfully playing all sides in that incredibly treacherous world of Renaissance politics where alliances changed overnight.
He inherited this unofficial rule when he was just 20, forced into it, and proved himself brilliant. Great diplomat, sharp businessman, expanded the bank's influence everywhere.
But success breeds enemies, doesn't it? His very genius created resentment. The old Florentine families, eclipsed by the Medici.
They hated him.
Other Italian states feared Florence's power, and maybe most importantly, there was a new pope in Rome, Sixtus V, who was absolutely determined to knock the Medici down a peg or two.
So Lorenzo's under massive pressure, juggling city demand, rival ambitions, constant threats of war, trying to be all things to all people, a balancing act that was about to be tested by fire, forcing him towards vengeance.
Then you have Giuliano, the younger brother, 24. Lorenzo's the sun, Giuliano's the moon, cool, gentle light.
Yeah, the golden boy. Handsome, athletic, charming, genuinely the darling of the people, just had this effortless popularity.
He was the public face of the Medici Golden Age, wasn't he? A symbol of the wealth, the power, the cultural prestige, champion jouster, graceful writer. He just floated through society.
But maybe simpler tastes. Less interested in the dirty work of politics than Lorenzo. Loved, not feared. Didn't seem to have many enemies.
And that's the irony, isn't it? That very lack of guile, that approachability, made him the perfect target for the plotters.
The soft underbelly. Easier to get close to, easier to kill, and his death would hit the hardest, emotionally. A tragic vulnerability.
Then, the Pazzi themselves. Jacopo de Pazzi, the old patriarch, and his nephew, Francesco. Ancient family, proud lineage. Once equals with the Medici, now feeling like they were in decline.
Jacopo's old school, right? Remember when the Pazzi name meant something huge? He's cautious, conservative maybe, he doesn't want to risk the family fortune.
But proud, fiercely proud, hates seeing the family fade. So when this opportunity comes up, he's torn. Caution versus ambition, a classic dilemma.
Well, Francesco, the nephew, he's driven by something fiercer. Pure ambition, yes, but also this burning hatred for the Medici. He blames them for everything, for his family's decline.
He's the engine behind the conspiracy. Zealous, intense, willing to gamble everything to put the Pazzi back on top. He's the one ready to unleash the storm, a personal vendetta fueling him.
And then there's Archbishop Francesco Salviati, a churchman with a very specific grudge.
Ah, yes. Powerful Florentine family. He was promised the Archbishopric of Pisa, a big deal, but Lorenzo blocked it. Why? Wary of rivals having too much power.
And Salviati never forgot that. A deep humiliation, a public slap in the face.
Yeah.
He wanted revenge.
So when the Pazzi came knocking, he saw his chance. Revenge and advancement all rolled into one. He's a man of God, holy vows, but also a man of the world. Knew how power worked.
The morality there is just stark. A prince of the church willing to use his office to hide a dagger, turned a cathedral into a slaughterhouse. Says a lot about the era.
It really does. Complex, hypocritical sometimes. And then beyond Florence, you have the offstage gravity, as you called it, the big players pulling strings.
Pope Sixtus IV, a tough, worldly pope, determined to expand his own power, get land and titles for his family. He saw the Medici as the main obstacle.
So he gives his blessing, right? Maybe not an explicit order, but certainly his sanction. Go ahead, get rid of them. He wasn't afraid to use spiritual weapons, excommunication, interdict for political gain. A dangerous guy.
His nephew, Count Girolamo Riario, just as ambitious, ruthless. He's the one who apparently first cooked up the idea, saw a chance for himself, brought the Pazzi and the Pope together. Assassination as a career move, basically.
Exactly, a stepping stone to his own little kingdom. And King Ferdinand of Naples.
He was scared of Florence getting too strong, upsetting the balance of power in Italy, saw the Medici as a threat, so he was willing to provide the muscle, the backup troops waiting outside the city, ready to march in once the Medici were dead.
So you have this potent mix.
Yeah.
Ambition, greed, envy, revenge. All these powerful men converging. They're about to decide Florence's fate, turn a holy day into terror.
The stakes couldn't be higher. The game of power, incredibly dangerous. And death was absolutely the price of failure. The clues to their downfall were already there, though, hidden in the details.
Yeah.
Hashtag for the money fight that lights the fuse.
In Renaissance Florence, you have to understand, money wasn't just money. It was diplomacy. It was a weapon. It was the ultimate symbol of power and influence.
Right. And in the years leading up to 1478, there's this simmering war going on. Not with swords and shields, but in the counting houses and the ledgers. A bitter fight for control of the biggest financial prize in Europe, the papal accounts.
For decades, the Medici Bank had a lock on that. They were the Pope's primary bankers, which meant not just huge profits, but immense prestige, influence across the continent.
Think about it, tithes, fees, indulgences. A constant river of gold flowing right through their coffers. It wasn't just business, it cemented their power in Florence, made them indispensable players everywhere. It was their lifeline.
But rivers change course, don't they? In the 1470s, things started shifting. The new Pope, Sixtus IV, well, he had a long memory for slights, real or perceived, and a deep resentment of the Medici's influence. He wanted to break their hold.
So he starts making moves. Calculated, deliberate, one by one, he begins transferring the papal accounts away from the Medici Bank.
And gives them to the Pazzi Bank.
Ouch. That wasn't just business. That was a public statement. A deliberate political provocation. Signaling to everyone. The Medici are out, the Pazzi are in, favored by Rome.
And the Pazzi, they were thrilled, eager to prove they were just as good, better even. They jumped at the chance, managed the papal funds skillfully, but also, with a certain relish, showing off.
But the real flashpoint, the thing that turned this banking rivalry into something deadly, wasn't just moving accounts around, it was about land. A town called Imola.
Ah, Imola, strategically crucial. Controlled trade routes between Florence and Venice. The Pope wanted to buy it for his nephew, that ambitious Girolamo Riario, to build up his own little statelet.
So naturally, he goes to the Medici Bank for the loan.
And Lorenzo says no. Flat out refuses. Why?
Mm-hmm.
He was wary of the Pope getting too strong, expanding his territory right on Florence's doorstep, saw Imola as a threat to Florentine security. A defensive move from his perspective.
But a massive miscalculation of the consequences. Because refusing the Pope
opened the door wide for the Pazzi. They saw their chance, a chance to curry favor with the Pope and publicly humiliate Lorenzo at the same time.
So they stepped right in, offered the Pope the loan Lorenzo had just refused. Boom.
And in doing that, they cemented their alliance with the Pope, absolutely. But they also sealed their own fate. The deal goes through. Imola becomes Riario's territory, a papal stronghold near Florence.
And in Rome, in Florence, the whispers start getting louder. Conspiracy starts brewing.
For the Pazzi, landing the Imola deal was a huge win, a public triumph over the Medici. But it was also the point of no return.
Okay.
They'd slapped Lorenzo in the face very publicly. They knew he wouldn't forgive it. He wouldn't forget it.
The time for playing nice, for half measures, was definitely over. They'd crossed a line.
The time for blood had come. That financial fight, ending with Imola, that was the real fuse that lit the Pazzi conspiracy. It wasn't just about spreadsheets. It was pride, power, perception, and revenge.
Okay, so the fuse is lit by the Imola deal. Summer 1477, Rome. It's hot, tense. You can picture Riario, Francesco de Pazzi, Archbishop Salviati meeting in secret, hearts full of ambition, revenge.
Their plan, initially, sounds simple. Brutal, audacious, but simple. Kill both Medici brothers, Lorenzo and Giuliano, and seize the government. A swift, clean coup. That was the idea, anyway.
Yeah, the idea. But what's fascinating, and maybe gives us some clues about why it ultimately failed, is how quickly that simple plan started to get complicated. It twisted, it turned, plagued by bad luck, missed chances. It almost felt cursed from the start.
Like fate was working against them. The first attempt, for instance, a dinner ambush, classic.
Yeah, totally. Lavish banquet at the Villa Pazzi just outside Florence. Plan was to poison their wine. Simple, deadly.
Except on the day Giuliano gets sick. A fever, apparently. Doesn't show up. Plan aborted.
You have to wonder, though, what if Giuliano had gone to that dinner? The whole story could be different. Maybe only one brother dies. Maybe the plot succeeds. A huge what if. Lucky break for Lorenzo.
A crucial moment, yeah. And the second attempt, same kind of problem, hinting they weren't very adaptable. They tried to use a visiting cardinal, Raffaele Riario, the Pope's young nephew, as cover.
The plan was to lure the Medici to a big reception for the cardinal at the Medici Palace itself. Assassins hidden among the guests, very cloak and dagger.
But Lorenzo, always cautious, maybe sensing something wasn't right, changed the schedule. Last minute, reception postponed.
It shows how sharp his instincts were, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Another clue to his survival. He just had this radar for danger.
He really seemed to. And then came the most bizarre problem, the assassin. They'd hired a pro, Giovanni Battista da Montesecco. A soldier killed before, not squeamish, perfect guy for the job.
But Montesecco unbelievably had a conscience, or at least a line he wouldn't cross. When he found out the final plan was to kill them in the cathedral during High Mass, He refused.
His exact words apparently were chilling. "I will not do it, for I will not add sacrilege to murder."
Wow. A professional killer draws a line at sacrilege. That's unexpected.
And it changed everything. It put the conspirators in a terrible bind. They had to scramble for replacements last minute.
And who did they get? Two priests, Antonio Maffei da Volterra and Stefano da Bagnone. Guys used to saying mass, not wielding daggers.
Exactly. Amateur assassins. Driven by fanaticism, maybe, but lacking the skill, the nerve, the cold-bloodedness required. A desperate move born of necessity. And ultimately a fatal flaw in the execution. It introduced huge human error.
So the final plan takes shape, but it's already compromised. Filled with amateurs. Attack on Easter Sunday. In the Duomo. At the elevation of the host. Maximum shock, maximum sacrilege.
And it had to be coordinated. Assassins hit the brothers simultaneously. Archbishop Salviati leads armed men to take City Hall, the Palazzo della Signoria, declare the Medici finished.
And outside the city walls, 600 mercenaries, courtesy of the Pope and the King of Naples, waiting for the signal to march in and restore order under Pazzi rule.
It was audacious, yes, but incredibly desperate now. Absolutely no room for error, especially with shaky hands holding the daggers. It was poised to go horribly, tragically wrong.
All those failed attempts, the assassin backing out, the reliance on amateurs, they were all clues, weren't they? Signs that this meticulous conspiracy was already dangerously off the rails before it even began.
So picture it. The morning of April 26, 1478, dawn's bright, clear over Florence, Easter Sunday. There's this festive mood in the air, almost joyful.
Yeah, completely belying the darkness that's about to hit. The streets are packed, people in their best clothes, heading to the Duomo to celebrate the resurrection. Church bells are ringing, almost mocking when you look back what was about to happen inside.
Inside the cathedral, the air is thick, electric almost. Packed to the rafters, this sea of humanity, heavy smell of incense, melting wax candles, mingling with, the less pleasant smell of unwashed bodies packed together, and maybe, just maybe, underneath it all, that faint metallic tang of fear.
Even amidst the celebration, there was this sense of unease, something not quite right.
Some accounts suggest that. A tension beneath the surface. And the conspirators. They were already there, in place, trying to blend in, faces pale, eyes darting nervously. They hadn't slept. Minds buzzing with that toxic mix of hope and fear, triumph or ruin.
They'd rehearsed it, gone over the plan again and again. Where to stand, who does what, watch for the signal. But now, in the actual cathedral, surrounded by thousands, confidence must have been shaky. The sheer scale of it, the sanctity, it had to be weighing on them, especially the amateurs.
And then, a crucial hitch. A detail that almost derailed things, but ultimately sealed Giuliano's fate. He was late.
Giuliano was late.
Wasn't feeling well, had a fever apparently, didn't want to get out of bed, just wanted to skip the whole public appearance.
But Lorenzo insisted.
Yeah. Lorenzo, ever the pragmatist,
Yeah.
knew they had to be seen together, united front, especially on Easter. So he pushed him, "You have to come." A seemingly minor family squabble, but critical.
So Giuliano drags himself there, weak, aching. And here's the truly fatal detail, the oversight. In his rush, feeling unwell, he left his armor behind.
His usual protective leather jerkin, he wasn't wearing it under his clothes, completely vulnerable. A tiny detail, but absolutely fatal. No protection against what was coming.
Wow. And as the brothers finally get to their seats near the altar, their friends close in. Those poets, philosophers, artists.
Their loyal circle, maybe they sensed something, that tension in the air. They instinctively pressed closer, forming this sort of protective huddle around Lorenzo and Giuliano. Another subtle clue, Lorenzo's inner circle felt something was off.
The mass starts. Choir sings, priest chants, congregation prays, minutes tick by. Felt like an eternity for the plotters, surely. Watching, waiting, hands sweating, hearts pounding. The signal was getting close.
The elevation of the host, the moment all eyes turn to the altar, the moment the city holds its collective breath.
The moment the daggers come out and sanctity becomes sacrilege, this is it. The moment the priest raises the host high, a hush falls. Absolute silence. 10,000 heads bow. That was the signal.
And the conspiracy explodes. Holy Communion becomes unholy savagery.
Cine, in the nave, Francesco de Pazzi. His face, they say, a mask of demonic fury. All that pent-up envy, resentment just erupts. He lunges from the crowd, dagger gleaming, throws himself at Giuliano.
Plunges the blade deep into his back. Giuliano staggers, eyes wide. Utter astonishment, reaching for a sword he doesn't have.
And before he can even react, Bernardo Bandini de Baroncelli's there too. Second dagger flashes. It's a frenzy. Brutal, merciless, like wolves tearing at their prey. Pure savagery.
Giuliano collapses, falls to the marble floor. Body just becomes this canvas of blood. 19 stab wounds, 19. It wasn't just killing him, it was overkill fueled by pure hatred.
And then that final, bizarre, chilling detail. Francesco de Pazzi, in his fury, accidentally stabs himself in the thigh. A symbol of his madness, a premonition, who knows, just madness.
Okay, now scene B, near the choir, simultaneously, just feet away. The two priest-assassins, Maffei and Bagnone, make their move on Lorenzo, and their lack of experience, it shows immediately, critically.
Maffei lunges, hand trembling, face pale. Fear, fanaticism, he aims for Lorenzo's throat, but his aim is off. Nerve fails him. The blade just grazes Lorenzo's neck. A shallow gash, more a scratch, really, amateur hour.
But Lorenzo, his reflexes are sharp, years of jousting, sword practice. He reacts instantly, throws up his thick velvet cloak, quick thinking deflects the second clumsy blow.
And draws his own short sword. He was armed, even in church, ready. He parries their clumsy attacks, eyes blazing now. Cold, deadly fury.
And his friends, the poets, the philosophers, they rally, not warriors, but loyal, fiercely loyal. They form a protective circle, draw their own small swords, a fragile bastion of civilization against this sudden barbarity.
They push Lorenzo back towards the sacristy, that small room, their only chance. Slam the heavy bronze doors shut. That sound echoes through the chaos.
Inside, suffocating silence, relatively speaking, they pile benches, chairs against the doors, makeshift barricade, and they listen to the screams outside, the dying, the mob roaring, the bells tolling. A symphony of death just beginning.
Because the cathedral itself is pure chaos now. A stampede, people screaming, pushing, trampling each other, desperate to escape. Sounds of shattering glass, splintering wood, cries of terror.
The marble floor, moments ago pristine, now slick with blood. A scene from hell, literally. The Pazzi conspiracy had drawn first blood, killed Giuliano. But the day of violence was far, far from over. The chaos itself, maybe more than they bargained for. A miscalculation. So, while that horror is unfolding in the cathedral, remember, there's a second part to this plan, equally crucial. A few blocks away, at the Palazzo della Signora City Hall, the political heart of Florence.
Right. This is Archbishop Salviati's job. His mission: seize the government building, declare the Medici are finished, welcome the Pazzi as the new rulers. Sounds straightforward enough on paper.
But Salviati wasn't a soldier. He was a churchman used to quiet cloisters, not storming government buildings. He arrives with his armed men, trying to look confident. But inside, his nerve starts to go.
He hesitates at the gates.
Exactly. Just pauses for a moment. Indecision. And that hesitation, it was fatal. A key clue to his character and the plot's weakness.
Because the guard saw it.
Instantly. These weren't rinkies. Seasoned veterans, loyal to the Medici. They see an archbishop showing up with armed men, looking shifty. They know something's wrong. They slam the huge door shut, trapped him and his men inside. He literally walked into his own trap. His hesitation doomed him.
And the boss, the head of the city government, the gonfaloniere, Cesare Petrucci. Tough guy.
Very harsh, suspicious, fiercely loyal to the Republic. And he had no time for Salviati or the Pazzi anyway, saw them as schemers. He hears the commotion, comes running, sword drawn, finds Salviati and his guys in total confusion, plan already falling apart.
Petrucci doesn't mess around.
Not for a second.
But
orders his guards, disarm them, tie them up, prisoners. Salviati tries to bluff, stammering about urgent business. The armed men are just an escort.
Petrucci wasn't buying it.
Not a chance. He knew exactly what he was looking at. Treason. An attempt to overthrow the government, and he knew he had to send a message. A brutal one.
And this is where that Renaissance brutality really comes out from under the fancy clothes and art, isn't it?
Absolutely. Petrucci, without ceremony, drags Archbishop Salviati to a window overlooking the main piazza, ties a rope around his neck, and pushes him out.
Just like that.
Just like that. The Archbishop, robes flapping, swing from the window like some grotesque pendulum, a shocking public symbol of the failed coup, a stark warning.
And the others captured with him.
Same fate. Hanged, one by one from the windows of the palazzo, left dangling there. A gruesome spectacle for the crowds gathering below. The second part of the Pazzi plan had utterly collapsed. The coup failed.
And out in the streets, the people of Florence are starting to realize what's happened. And they have a choice to make. Stick with the Medici or... So news is spreading like wildfire now. Attack in the cathedral, Giuliano dead. Failed coup attempt at City Hall, the Archbishop hanging from a window. Florence is just stunned. Confused, scared. The city just holds its breath, right? Waiting. Which way is this going to go?
A moment of absolute suspense, utter uncertainty. Civil war felt imminent.
And Giacomo Pazzi, the old patriarch. He makes one last, desperate gamble. Gets on his horse, rides through the streets shouting, Libertà, libertà, liberty, liberty.
A direct appeal, right, to those Republican ideals Florence held so dear. Rise up against the Medici tyrants. Reclaim your freedom.
But here's where you see the real Florence, the pragmatic Florence. The people.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't naive. They understood power. They knew where their bread was buttered, basically.
Exactly. Their prosperity, their security, their whole way of life. You was tied up with the Medici, the loans, the jobs, the public works, the art, the city's prestige. They weren't about to trade all that stability, that tangible benefit.
For some abstract promise of liberty shouted by a rival banker whose family just tried to murder their leaders in church, probably not.
Definitely not. They turned their backs on Jacopo, literally, shut their shops, barred their doors, and then amazingly, they started going up onto the rooftops with crossbows, muskets.
Getting ready to fight.
Ready to fight, not for the Pazzi's idea of liberty, but to defend their homes, their families, their way of life under the Medici. They chose stability. They chose loyalty.
And then comes the tipping point, the absolute game changer. Lorenzo de' Medici emerges from the sacristy, neck bandaged, pale but alive, resolute, furious.
He's alive. That news just electrified the city, spread like wildfire, a spark of hope. The Medici network, all those alliances, loyalties, obligations built over generations, it was still intact. Their leader survived.
And the people, seeing him alive.
They erupted, a roar of approval, relief, support. They surged through the streets shouting Medici slogans. They became a mob, yeah, but a unified force, driven by loyalty. And now, thirsty for revenge.
The manhunt begins. Led by the people themselves, Florence had made its choice, unequivocally, loyalty to the Medici, cemented now in blood.
Lorenzo, wounded, grieving for his brother, adrenaline still pumping. He wastes no time. He knows he has to be quick, decisive, ruthless. This is survival now.
He's not the Pope philosopher right now, is he? He's the ruler fighting for his life, his family, his city, pushed to the absolute brink.
That bloody bandage on his neck, it becomes a symbol, a rallying point. The crowd, confused moments before, now has a leader, a focus for their rage. Medici supporters mobilize instantly, swords out. Grim faces, determined to exact a terrible revenge.
And what follows is just a bloodbath, a paroxysm of violence, they called it. Stained the streets for days. The conspirators, hunted men now, their dreams of power turned into a nightmare.
Dragged from hiding places, cellars, attics, secret passages, hauled straight to the Palazzo della Signoria, the building they'd hoped to rule from becomes their torture chamber.
Brutal interrogations.
Oh, yes. Threats, promises, the rack, whatever it took to get confessions, names, details, broken men, spirits crushed, bodies in agony. They talked.
And then?
One by one, dragged to those same windows where Salviati hung, and pushed out, hanged. Swift, brutal public justice, or vengeance, depending on your view. Designed to punish, yes, but mostly to terrify anyone else who might get ideas. A calculated display of power.
The bodies were just left there, dangling.
For days, faces twisted, limbs twitching. A gruesome spectacle the crowd watched. Horror, fascination, maybe grim satisfaction. Their thirst for revenge being sated.
It's that moral whiplash again, isn't it? From holy mass to sacrilegious murder to the city itself erupting in this brutal cycle of revenge.
Absolutely. Over 60 people killed on that first day alone, apparently. Bodies left in the streets. The Pazzi conspiracy was crushed. Utterly. But something else died too. That sense of Florentine innocence, perhaps, replaced by a much harder understanding of power and its price. The immediate aftermath was bloody, swift vengeance. But the real aftershocks, they rickled out for years. Not just executions, but this quiet, methodical process of erasure, wiping the Pazzi name off the map entirely.
Damnatio memoriae, right. The damnation of memory. The Romans used to do that to hated enemies, erase them from history.
And the Medici applied it to the Pazzi with chilling efficiency. Total cultural annihilation. Family name banned from public records. Their coat of arms, those distinctive dolphins physically chipped off buildings, monuments everywhere. Property seized, assets confiscated, the family scattered.
Anyone named Pazzi had to change their name, renounce their heritage.
Yes. Sever all ties. Even people married to a Pazzi were barred from holding public office, tainted by association. The goal was literally to pretend they'd never existed, make the name itself a curse.
And Lorenzo's vengeance reached far beyond Florence, didn't it? That guy, Bernardo Bandini de Baroncelli, the one who struck the first blow against Giuliano.
He escaped, made it all the way to Constantinople, the Ottoman Empire, must have thought he was safe. Thousands of miles away, under the Sultan's protection, he was wrong.
Lorenzo tracked him down. How?
Spies, informants. The Medici network was vast, and then Lorenzo used his diplomatic muscle. Persuaded Sultan Mehmed II, the conqueror of Constantinople, no less to extradite Bandini. A huge diplomatic coup showed everyone nobody gets away.
So they brought him back in chains.
Yep. December 1479, over a year later, dragged back to Florence like a trophy, hanged from a window of the Palazzo del Capitano del Popolo, still wearing the Turkish clothes he was captured in. A very deliberate visual statement.
And Leonardo da Vinci sketched him hanging there.
He did, in his notebook. A chillingly dispassionate sketch. The artist observing death with cold curiosity. Leonardo himself benefited hugely from Medici patronage, remember?
And the artistic revenge continued. Botticelli painted portraits of the conspirators.
Commissioned portraits, yes, hung on the walls of the Palazzo della Signoria. But they weren't flattering. They were grotesque caricatures. Twisted faces, deformed bodies, designed to shame them publicly forever. Art as propaganda, as vengeance.
And Lorenzo himself wrote the epitaph for Bandini's portrait.
He did, something like, I am Bernardo Bandini, a new Judas traitor and killer in a church was I, a rebel awaiting a more cruel death. Left no doubt about the official verdict.
So the conspiracy crushed, traitors punished, names erased, memory damned. But those scars, that bloody Easter Sunday, they remained, didn't they? A reminder of how fragile peace is, how brutal power can be, what darkness lurks beneath the surface, even in the heart of the Renaissance. So the Pazzi plot fails to overthrow the Medici, but ironically, it succeeds in giving Pope Sixtus V exactly what he wanted, an excuse for war.
Exactly. He'd backed the conspiracy secretly, but now he feigns outrage over Archbishop Salviati's execution. Conveniently forgets Salviati was a traitor caught red-handed, frames it as an attack on the church itself, an insult Rome couldn't tolerate.
So, June 1st, 1478, the Pope drops the hammer, issues a papal bull, excommunicates Lorenzo, his supporters, the whole Florence government, spiritual death sentence, declares them enemies of God.
And then, June 20th, he doubles down, places the entire city of Florence under an interdict. Spiritual lockdown, no mass, no sacraments, no burials in holy ground. Designed specifically to turn the deeply religious Florentine people against Lorenzo, make them blame him for losing God's favor.
But it backfired, didn't it? The Florentines, they didn't turn on Lorenzo.
Amazingly, no. If anything, it strengthened their loyalty. They saw the Pope's move for what it was, pure politics. Using spiritual weapons for worldly gain, for territory, they resented the heavy-handed tactics, refused to buckle, showed that famous Florentine independence.
So the Pope declares war. Papal armies, led by that nephew Riario, team up with the Kingdom of Naples, King Ferdinand. A powerful coalition marches on Florence.
The city's under siege, trade routes cut, economy crippled, survival looks doubtful, they're facing overwhelming force.
And Lorenzo. He survived assassination, but now faces total war. He's a diplomat at heart, not a general. What does he do?
He does something completely unexpected, audacious, maybe even crazy. December 1479. War's going badly. Florence is desperate. Lorenzo gets on a ship, sails to Naples, alone.
Alone, to face King Ferdinand, his sworn enemy. The guy funding the war against him.
Reads himself right in the lion's den. Incredibly brave or incredibly foolish, a massive gamble. Could have ended with his head on a spike, but he knew Florence was doomed otherwise.
But Lorenzo's weapon wasn't a sword. It was his charm, his intellect, his power of persuasion.
Absolutely. He goes to work on King Ferdinand. Argues, cajoles, flatters, reasons, paints this picture of a united Italy warning about the real threat foreign invasion, especially the Ottoman Turks. Says these internal squabbles are weakening everyone.
And Ferdinand buys it.
He's won over. Lorenzo's charisma, his logic. It works. Ferdinand agrees to peace, pulls his troops out, abandons the Pope. A stunning diplomatic victory for Lorenzo. Reason triumphs over force.
And then fate intervenes again.
A beautiful twist. Summer 1480, the Pope is still furious about Ferdinand ditching him. But then the Ottoman Turks land an army at Otranto, right on the heel of Italy. A massive shock. A terrifying new threat to the entire peninsula.
Suddenly, the Pope has bigger problems.
Much bigger. Turks in his backyard, he has no choice. Needs Italian unity. Makes peace with Florence, lifts the interdict, welcomes Lorenzo back like a hero. The war is over.
And Lorenzo, he went from near ruin to not.
Stronger than ever. More powerful, more respected across Italy. He'd faced death, faced war, saved his city through sheer guts and diplomacy. He truly earned his title then. Il Magnifico. The Magnificent.
And ushered in that famous Florentine Golden Age. Peace, prosperity, incredible art, all built on the ashes of that conspiracy. Amazing turnaround.
Looking back, the Pazzi conspiracy, it was more than just a failed coup, wasn't it? It really was a defining moment, shaped the Renaissance, left this lasting legacy on politics, A brutal lesson in power, peace, and resilience.
And one key lesson seems to be about reputation, especially in a place like Florence. No king, so reputation is your currency, right? The Medici ruled because people believed they were wise, benevolent, good for the city.
Exactly. Their power rested on consent, built on that carefully crafted image. Patrons of art, guardians of prosperity, the Pazzi tried to destroy that currency, tarnish that reputation with violence, turn the people against them.
But they failed. They totally underestimated how strong that bond was between the Medici and Florence. A bond built on decades of, well, effective, if sometimes ruthless, management.
And the murder itself in the cathedral. It wasn't madness, was it? It was calculation, cold calculation. These weren't fanatics in the modern sense. They understood the power of spectacle.
They chose the Duomo, chose Easter Mass, to deliberately shock the city into submission, shatter the Medici's image of invincibility.
Precisely. They thought that act of ultimate sacrilege would break the city's will, turn opinion instantly, but they miscalculated badly. The people weren't so easily swayed. Loyalty, especially when tied to prosperity, runs deep.
It says something about Florentine resilience, too. Not just military strength, but as you said, those credit webs, client ties, neighborhood loyalties, the invisible structures holding the city together.
That was the real Medici power base, relationships. This vast, intricate network of alliances, dependencies, obligations. When that web was attacked, the whole city fought back, almost like a single organism. A powerful lesson for anyone wanting to rule there.
And the conspiracy just rips the beautiful facade off the Renaissance, doesn't it? We think Botticelli philosophy, but it was also incredibly violent, unstable, constant warfare, shifting alliances, backstabbing.
Politics was the art of survival. Managing risk was just as important as appreciating art. Lorenzo embodied that paradox perfectly.
Yeah, commissioning a Botticelli one day, negotiating peace the next, writing poetry, ordering executions. He was a product of his time, but also a master of it. Renaissance glory and Renaissance brutality, all in one man.
His survival, his triumph after the conspiracy cemented that image. The ultimate Renaissance man, creative, cultured, but also tough, decisive, ruthless when necessary.
He was tested by extreme violence, and he came through. Faced down his enemies, saved the city, earned Il Magnifico, and ushered in that golden age. Unprecedented peace, prosperity, art. But an age born directly out of that bloodshed. Hashtag tag take outro. So let's go back one last time to the Florence Cathedral. Scene of the crime. Crowds are gone now, of course. The flood's washed away, the bodies are buried. But you feel like the memory, it still lingers there, doesn't it? A kind of ghost in the sacred space, a whisper of violence.
You can almost picture it, can't you? That faint stain, maybe, on the marble where Giuliano fell. A permanent reminder, a scar on the city's soul, a testament to the price of power.
But then, you look up, past the arches, the stained glass, up to that incredible dome. Brunelleschi's masterpiece, a triumph of human genius, artistry, faith.
And it's a symbol of Florence itself, isn't it? A city pushed to the absolute brink, facing destruction. But it refused to fall. It survived. It endured. It emerged from that darkness into an even more glorious age. Resilience.
It survived, yes. But there was a cost. That peace, that stability of Lorenzo's golden age, it was built on something new, maybe. Fear. Fear of Medici power, Medici wrath, Medici vengeance. The city traded some freedom for security.
It's a bargain societies make throughout history, isn't it? Often without thinking too hard about it to escape chaos.
Which leaves us with a final thought for you, listening. Was it worth it? Was that golden age, the age of Lorenzo the Magnificent, worth the price? The blood, the fear, the ruthlessness it took to achieve and maintain it?
It's a tough question. No easy answer. Historians, philosophers, they've debated it for centuries. Still do.
But one thing seems certain. In a city built on trust, where reputation was everything, the first cut was, quite literally, to the throat. What does that tell us about the real foundations of power, then, and maybe even now? What are we willing to sacrifice, really, for order and glory? Something to think about.